Knowledge of self. Question 919. What is the most effective practical means for man to improve himself in this life and to resist the attraction of evil? A wise man of old told you, know yourself. We know all the wisdom of this maxim, but the difficulty lies precisely in each person knowing themselves. What is the way to achieve it? Do what I did when I lived on earth. At the end of the day, I questioned my conscience, reviewed what I had done, and asked myself if I hadn't failed in some duty, if no one had reason to complain about me. That's how I got to know myself and see what in me needed reforming. The one who, every night, recalled all the actions he had performed during the day and asked himself the good or the bad he had done, praying to God. And for his guardian angel to enlighten him, he would acquire great strength to improve himself, because, believe me, God would assist him. Therefore, ask yourselves questions, ask yourselves about what you have done and with what objective you have acted towards it. This or that circumstance, about whether you have done something that, if done by someone else, you would blame, about whether you have done some action that you would not dare to confess. If it pleased God to call me at this moment, I would have to fear someone's gaze, upon re-entering the world of spirits, where nothing can be hidden. Examine what you could have done against God, then against your neighbor, and, finally, against yourself. The answers will give you either rest for your conscience or the indication of an evil that needs to be cured. Knowledge of oneself is, therefore, the key to individual progress. But, you might say, how can anyone judge themselves? Isn't there the illusion of self-love to mitigate faults and make them excusable? The miser considers himself merely economical and far-sighted, the proud judge that there is dignity in itself. This is very real, but you have a means of verification that cannot deceive you. When you are undecided about the value of one of your actions, inquire. How would you qualify it if it was practiced by someone else? If you criticize it in someone else, it could not be considered legitimate when you are its author, since God does not use two measures in the application of his justice. Also seek to know what your people think of it. And do not despise the opinion of your enemies, for they have no interest in disguising the truth, and God often places them at your side like a mirror, so that you may be warned more frankly than a friend would. Consequently, in his conscience he who feels possessed of the serious desire to improve himself, in order to extirpate bad tendencies from himself, as he pulls out the weeds from his garden. Take stock of your moral day to, like the trader, evaluate your losses and profits, and I assure you that the latter's account will be larger than the former. If you can say that your day was good, you will be able to sleep peacefully and wait without fear for waking up in the next life. Formulate, therefore, clear and precise questions for yourself and do not be afraid to multiply them. It is fair that you spend a few minutes to achieve eternal happiness. Do not work every day with the aim of accumulating assets that guarantee you rest, and is not old age the object of all your desires, the end that makes you endure temporary fatigue and deprivation? Well, what is this rest of a few days, always disturbed by bodily infirmities, compared to what awaits you? Good man? Isn't this one worth some effort? I know there are many who say the present is positive and the future is uncertain. Now, this is exactly the idea that we are in charge of eliminating from your soul, since we want to make you understand that future, so that there is no doubt left in your soul. That is why we first drew your attention through phenomena capable of hurting your senses, and that we now give you instructions, which each of you is responsible for spreading. It is with this objective in mind that we dictate the Spirit's book. St. Augustine. Kardec's comment, many mistakes we commit go unnoticed. If, in fact, following St. Augustine's advice, we questioned our conscience more often, we would see how many times we go bankrupt without suspecting it, simply because we do not examine the nature and motive of our actions. The interrogative form has something more precise than any maxim, which we often fail to apply to ourselves. The former requires categorical answers, by a yes or no, which do not leave room for any alternative and which are so many personal arguments. And, based on the sum of the answers, we will be able to compute the sum of good or evil that exists in us. Allan Kardec. Give the Brat, the Spirit's Book. 76th edition. Brazilian Spiritist Federation. 1995.